Under the cold silence of space, the Trellick fleet moved like a wall of steel, their perfect formation glowing under the distant starlight. Captain Jorvac stood on the bridge of his flagship, confident that this would be another easy victory for the Alliance. Humans, he believed, were reckless fighters, brave perhaps, but predictable and easy to crush. Yet, there were whispers in the galactic corridors, stories of battles where humans had turned certain defeat into victory. Across the void, the human fleet looked small, their ships older, their numbers fewer. Captain Elaine Monroe watched quietly from her command seat, her fingers tracing the edge of the console as her mind calculated possibilities. She knew the Trellick expected an open fight, one where fleets clashed face to face until one side fell. But humanity had learned long ago that war was never fair, and survival belonged to those who could rewrite the rules. Somewhere, hidden in the thick clouds of the Zelvra Nebula, human scouts waited for her signal. The enemy thought they were safe, their rear unguarded, but Elaine's plan was already unfolding. When she gave the order, the darkness behind the Trellick fleet would come alive, turning the hunters into the hunted. Without warning, shapes emerged from the thick, swirling mist of the Zelvra Nebula, slipping silently behind the Trellick fleet, like shadows in deep water. Small human strike ships appeared where no scanners had detected them, their engines whisper quiet, their weapons already locked. In an instant, they opened fire not on the Trellick weapons, but on their engines, crippling movement before resistance could form. The disciplined formation shattered as confusion spread through enemy ranks. Commands from Jorvac were lost in bursts of static as human jamming signals flooded their channels. From her bridge, Captain Elaine Monroe watched the unfolding chaos with sharp, calculating eyes. Every move had been prepared days in advance, every position chosen with precision. This was no random ambush. It was a trap built piece by piece in silence. Clouds of sensor-scrambling particles began to spread from human drones, turning the void into a blinding maze where nothing could be trusted. Enemy ships fired wildly at ghost signals, hitting nothing but empty space. The Trellick thought they were the hunters, but now they drifted powerless, surrounded by unseen predators. For the first time, Jorvac felt a shadow of doubt. This was not the kind of battle he had trained for, and he could feel control slipping away. Jorvac's hands tightened on the rail as the battle no longer followed any pattern he knew. It was as if the humans were not fighting a war, but playing a game only they understood. Every time he adjusted his formation, the enemy was already one step ahead, striking from an unexpected angle, then vanishing into the mist. Strange energy readings flickered across his displays, phantom warships appearing in impossible locations, false targets created by human decoy emitters. His fleet wasted precious shots on illusions while the real attackers moved freely. On the other side, Captain Elaine Monroe watched the enemy's frustration grow, her calm voice directing her crews with surgical precision. She sent feints to lure the Trellick into open space, then pulled back before they could retaliate, drawing them deeper into her invisible net. Panic began to ripple through the Trellick ranks. Their soldiers were trained for direct combat, not for shadows and tricks. The more they tried to fight back, the more mistakes they made, leaving gaps that the humans slipped through like water. Jorvac realized with sinking dread that he was not simply losing ships, he was losing the fight in his own mind, and once that happened, no fleet could be saved. The Trellick fleet was no longer a proud wall of steel, but a scattered storm of desperate ships drifting through the blinding haze. Discipline had dissolved into chaos, each vessel trying to survive on its own, while unseen enemies circled like wolves. Human warships struck without warning, vanishing before counterfire could find them, while boarding pods slammed into isolated cruisers, spilling human marines into their corridors. These soldiers did not march in neat lines. They moved like water through a broken dam, splitting into small units, appearing where they were least expected. One moment they would retreat, baiting Trellick defenders into following, and the next they would seal the doors behind them, trapping their prey in cold, airless silence. On the flagship, Jorvac barked orders, but each command reached fewer and fewer ships as communications collapsed under human interference. He had no clear view of the battle. Every sensor was choked with false readings, every tactical display an unreadable mess. Reports came in of ships surrendering rather than being destroyed. their crews overwhelmed not by brute force, but by relentless unpredictability. The humans were not destroying for the sake of destruction, they were dismantling the fleet piece by piece, stripping it of movement, vision, and hope. The realization cut deeper than any weapon. Jorvak was watching the careful unraveling of everything his fleet stood for, and he could do nothing to stop it. Somewhere in the smoke and static, he knew Elaine Monroe was still out there, calm and calculating, pulling threads until the whole war unraveled in her hands. And for the first time in his career, the seasoned captain felt a quiet, sinking certainty this battle was already lost. When the last echoes of battle faded, the Trelak fleet was little more than drifting wrecks and powerless hulks. Fires burned silently in the vacuum, casting a dim glow across the debris field. The few surviving ships limped away, carrying with them the shame of a defeat they could not explain. On her bridge, Captain Elaine Monroe stood with her hands clasped behind her back, watching the wreckage scatter into the endless dark. The battle had not been about firepower or armor. It had been about control of the field, control of the enemy's mind, and control of the rules themselves. The Trelak had come expecting an honorable clash, a fair fight where strength decided victory. What they faced instead was a war fought like a hunt, where every advantage was taken, every weakness exploited, and every assumption turned into a trap. As reports came in, Elaine noted the efficiency of her crews: more prisoners taken than casualties suffered, more enemy vessels captured intact than destroyed. This was not just a victory, it was a message. Across the galaxy, whispers would spread of the humans who did not fight like others, who refused to meet their enemies on equal ground because equal ground meant surrendering the only thing that made them dangerous: their unpredictability. In the coming weeks, analysts and admirals across the Alliance would study the Zelvra Nebula engagement, trying to understand how a smaller, weaker fleet had outmaneuvered a disciplined war machine. But they would not see the truth in charts and reports. They would not feel the creeping doubt that had poisoned Jorvak's decisions, or the invisible pressure that had driven disciplined soldiers into chaos. The lesson was simple but terrifying. Humans did not play by the galaxy's rules. They bent them, broke them, rewrote them until the game itself was unrecognizable. For humanity, war was not a contest of strength but a puzzle to be solved, and they had once again proven that those who could change the puzzle could win it. Elaine allowed herself a small, quiet smile. The Trelak would recover someday, but they would never forget this battle. And when they faced humans again, they would remember that victory does not belong to those who fight fair, it belongs to those who win.